Well, Jesus really lets them have it here. I mean, really shows them in multiple ways. I don't know if you noticed that, but there are two separate instances here, but he also recalls an earlier one with David, you know, reciting to them that it is even written that David has broken the law. And that if they are these law knowers and law keepers, and of course they put David on such a high pedestal, that's basically why he's making the point of saying this about David, that even David has done this. And then of course he makes the point about the priests, that the priests break the Sabbath all the time. How much more special are they? As he begins to describe the sheep that was fallen in a pit. All of this stuff becomes interrelated in the fullness of what he's trying to convey. And he's doing it in such a way tactfully that he realizes that this will be understood by the generations to come. That this will have the fullness of meaning, not just for those people, those men, those women of that time, that would come right on down to us right now and those hereafter. So, it's two separate times they try to ensnare and entrap him. In two separate times, he breaks the law. And he breaks the law in such a way where he's breaking the law to meet the needs of his children. And that's the point, that the law itself can never provide, but the living word can. And the living word will always find a way to provide. There's nothing that's going to stop it. Definitely not the laws of men. So obviously these weren't the exact laws given by Jesus Christ or ordained or held up by Jesus Christ if he himself is having to reinterpret them. He himself is actually having to overstep them, because if his word is perfect, he himself would have said it perfect from the beginning and would have had no need to go outside of it with his own actions. So as we see here, he actually reinterprets Jewish law and advises any others to do the same. And please don't play the fool here and try to ignore what I just said, because it's the absolute truth, and it will be written right here in his words. So he reinterpreted Jewish law, which showed that the interpretation that these law keepers have is wrong. And that in life you have to adapt to new situations as things are needed. And that's one of the main reasons why the law, trying to live to it by the letter, will never work with the Spirit. Because the Spirit will always have to adapt. It will always have to adapt to the needs of the goodness of those that need it. How much then is a man better than a sheep? Wherefore it is lawful to do well on the Sabbath days. So he reinterprets the law by simply saying, it is lawful to do well on the Sabbath days. So the interpretation that they had, that there were all these things that could not be observed on the Sabbath days, will absolutely fall to the living word of the Spirit, this grace, this liberty to walk in the Spirit and do as one needs for the benefit of the goodness of himself. Wherefore it is lawful to do well on the Sabbath days. Who to do well on the Sabbath days? Well, obviously us. We are the children of God, are we not? So Jesus Christ is advising the reinterpretation of Sabbath law, and he himself gives the example and shows in two separate accounts, both accounts, these Pharisees, these law keepers, tried to ensnare him. But of course, they could not stop that truth. They could not bind it. They could not freeze it. They tell you to fight fire with fire. I tell you, fight fire with water.